This is a once-in-a-lifetime case. All I did was I pieced things together. I got the call from my inspector. He didn't have a lot of information, so it was more or less like, go down there and figure out what we have. You don't often see body parts being discovered.
So this is odd.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely odd.
Do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into?
Not at that point. Like, it could be a boating accident. I don't know. At that point, I did not know. When I get there, I make my way down to the beach, and I stop cold. It was probably about 30 feet up the bluff. There was just no way for that to get there by accident. And that's when I knew we had a homicide.
You don't know who this victim is?
She was definitely an African-American female. Don't know who she is. I don't know, obviously, who any suspect is. I know nothing. I had nothing. I needed to know what happened to her.
What brought you here?
We came just to do a welfare check. My name is Nora Donegan, and I was a patrol officer.
Who lives here?
Sade Robinson. Her friends hadn't heard from her. Miss Robinson! Milwaukee Police, please answer the door. We're gonna come in otherwise. Okay, I don't hear anything.
So they seen her on Monday morning at 9 and 10 o'clock.
Sade was very excited about a date that she was going to be having.
Nobody's seen her since the date.
Right away, alarm bells were going off for me. We needed to figure out who this date was.
You can't stop thinking about this.
No. There was just something odd about everything, maybe the timing of them.
Missing person, body part found.
I had a weird feeling. I reached out to the sheriff's department. Detective Donner from the Milwaukee Sheriff's Department. I just said, I've got this girl who's missing, and I'm curious, do you think that this could be related? She said she thinks that that's gonna be her girl. I got chills.
Along the Wisconsin shoreline of Lake Michigan sits a rocky, wooded area called Warnemont Park.
It's not somewhere that you find a lot of people.
On April 2nd, 2024,
What's up, man?
a young man, out for a walk with a friend, made that gruesome find.
As they're walking, see that leg right there?
Yeah.
Lead Detective Joe Donner of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office says she knew she had a homicide, but nothing else.
You have a leg. Where's the rest of her?
At that point, I didn't know.
So you have human remains, no weapon, no suspect. Where do we go from here?
That was a question I asked myself most of that night.
But with the help of Milwaukee Police Detective Nora Donegan, Donner had a suspicion who her victim might be. Sade Robinson, a 19-year-old college student. On the evening of April 1st, 2024, she had plans to go on a date. but had not been seen since. Donner soon learned that Sade's car had been found behind an abandoned building, 3 miles from Sade's apartment, set on fire.
This is Sade's vehicle.
This is pretty much completely destroyed.
It is. It definitely negated any type of DNA, fingerprints, anything like that.
Though the car was heavily damaged, it still revealed a great deal to the fire investigator.
The passenger side smelled heavily of a petroleum distillate,
So what did that tell them?
that it was more than likely an arson.
And though the car's interior was destroyed, investigators were able to recover something crucial.
So underneath the driver's seat, Sade's purse was tucked under there. To me, it definitely eliminates a robbery, right?
And when investigators opened the trunk of Sade's car, they made a distressing discovery.
We found her pants, her underwear, her jacket, and her shoes.
This is the clothes she was wearing that night.
And the jeans, it was apparent that somebody else had taken them off. They were turned inside out, and the underwear were still attached to them. So, yeah, it was definitely a red flag.
Another red flag was something Detective Donner and her team noticed about the driver's seat, something that suggested someone else had driven Sade's car.
We take note of the seat positioning because that'll give height indicators. I was able to determine about how far back that seat was. I then went to a dealership and found an identical model.
With the driver's seat in the same position as the one in Sade's vehicle, Detective Donner grabbed a deputy who was about Sade's height.
And when she sat in the car, she couldn't touch the pedals. Her arms were straight out. And she's like, there's no way, I can't drive like this without perching on the very edge of the seat.
Donner also had a taller detective sit in the vehicle. And based on her experiment, Donner says the last person to drive Sade's car had to be at least 6 feet tall.
There was no way
No way.
Sade was the last person in that driver's seat.
No.
The day after finding the remains on the beach, investigators contacted Sade's mother, Sheena Scarborough.
I'll never forget that day. Like, what's going on?
Sheena immediately sent for Sade's 16-year-old sister, Adriana, to come home early from school.
We drove over to my mom's house, and they were all very obviously upset.
But Sade's family hoped that this was a mistake and Sade would be found alive and well. The officer asked Adriana to share Sade's cell phone location from her Life 360 app.
What is Life 360?
Unlike Find My iPhone, that gives you where your phone is right now, Life 360 gives you historical data. And it uses GPS, so it tends to be far more precise than the cell records.
And I pulled up the location. I saw that her phone had died at 4:35 a.m. at Warnemont Park. And when I saw that, it was like, that was a very unusual place for her to be. And when I said that, the detective, his face like dropped. And he was like, he just like, yeah, he shut down kinda.
I knew something wasn't right. Somebody had hurt my baby.
It's your video, Sade.
DNA tests hadn't yet determined if Sade Robinson matched the remains found along Lake Michigan. In the meantime, investigators began tracing the last known hours of her life. Younger sister Adriana saw Sade on Easter Sunday, the day before her date.
We had worked together that morning. She picked me up.
Sade and Adriana worked as servers at a country club.
She was one of the best workers they had.
It was one of Sade's 2 jobs on top of being a full-time student at a local technical college.
She wanted better for herself. She wanted better for me.
The hard work was paying off, with the 19-year-old able to rent an apartment and buy a car all on her own. Sade was set to graduate with an associate's degree in criminal justice the following month. Adriana says Sade hoped to then enlist in the military.
And she was looking to join the Air Force, so she had been meeting with recruiters. That's how much she wanted to do everything that she dreamed of doing.
After working at the country club on Sunday, March 31st, 2024, Adriana and Sade headed to their grandparents' house for Easter dinner.
It was a really, really good night. And then she took me home. Whenever she dropped me off, it was always like a hesitation. We always be like, love you. And that night, I still remember it was like a different kind of hesitation.
The next morning, Sade FaceTimed her mom, Sheena.
She was just glowing through the FaceTime. She just looked so beautiful. She was in a bubbly mood. She didn't mention anything to me about going on a date that evening.
Security cameras in Sade's building captured her leaving her apartment at 9 a.m. that morning. 15 minutes later, Sade arrived for her shift at the restaurant Pizza Shuttle. Former owner Mark Gold.
Everybody loved her immediately, and that's kind of rare, I think, in a restaurant or any business. And she's a great worker. She comes in on time, she smiles. Every time she would work with me, I'd say, "What's up, Sade?" And she'd go, "The sky, Mark." She always said it, and now I miss it.
Sade left Pizza Shuttle at 5 p.m. and texted a man she'd recently met, Maxwell Anderson.
They are discussing where they're going to meet up for their date.
Sade's text messages show they chose the Twisted Fisherman. Armed with that information, investigators then headed to the restaurant and obtained security camera footage of Sade and her date together. Detective Joe Donner examined the footage for clues.
What's sort of standing out to you as you watch this video? Why is it important?
You know, it's the demeanor. He does a lot of talking to the bartender, doesn't do a whole lot of talking to her, or even like turning and looking at her. It seems a little unusual for a date. There's not a lot of interaction.
Around 6:30 p.m., Sade and Maxwell Anderson left the restaurant together. With the help of Sade's Life 360 app, the detectives knew just where the pair were headed.
I'm so glad that she had that app.
So when you found out Sade had it on her phone, you must have thought, gold mine.
Yeah, score, big time.
According to her Life 360 app, Sade then went to a nearby bar called Duke's on Water. When investigators headed there, they found this security camera footage of Sade and her date arriving together at the bar. Again, Detective Donner took note of the pair's dynamic.
So they are playing beer pong with this couple, and honestly, this is the only time that it looks like she's having fun. I noticed that she seemed to be smiling and enjoying herself.
Sade and Maxwell Anderson left the bar together around 9 p.m.
She's walking fine, doesn't seem to be impaired.
I think it's interesting that they're walking together, but not until the very end. He kind of reaches over.
Right. That's the only, real physical contact other than briefly while they were playing beer pong that I see them have.
From there, Sade's date got in the car with her. The Life 360 app shows Sade arrived at Maxwell Anderson's house around 9:30. 3 hours later, the app shows Sade's phone left his house. Sade's car began traveling toward her apartment, but instead of going home, the car drove past the building. Multiple surveillance cameras would go on to capture Sade's car, with fogged-up windows, driving around for hours.
Did there seem to be any kind of rhyme or reason to where this vehicle was going that night?
No, it seemed to be going all over the place.
Then, at 2:53 a.m., the Life 360 app shows Sade's phone arriving at Warnemont Park, where the battery on her phone would later die. When the investigators checked for security camera footage from a nearby building, they made a chilling discovery. The grainy footage shows someone, possibly a man, dragging something to the lake.
This is the path that he took, and then he would go down.
Right around here.
Yeah, and this is where he disappears off of camera. It drops off right there. That's where we lose sight of him.
Roughly 90 minutes after first going out of view, the shadowy figure walks away from the lake, but now carrying something.
The final time that it comes up, you do see a large backpack on their back.
Who do you believe that figure is?
Maxwell Anderson.
Who was the last person Sade Robinson was seen with?
Maxwell Anderson.
Who is this person? How do you know my daughter?
Had you ever heard the name Maxwell Anderson?
No. There were so many questions, like how they knew each other, what his motives were.
The night Sade Robinson disappeared was not the first time she had met Maxwell Anderson. 3 days earlier, Sade, seen here on security camera footage, walked into a bar. The owner told 48 Hours that Sade was looking for a job. While there, she met the bartender, 6'1", 33-year-old Maxwell Anderson. They exchanged numbers, and Maxwell walked Sade to her car.
It seemed like he was trying to be a gentleman to this girl he was trying to impress.
What did you learn about Maxwell Anderson, his background?
I learned that he had been in the service industry for a while. He owned a home down on the south side of Milwaukee, was in the Navy for a brief amount of time.
Why did he leave the military?
I believe it was a general discharge.
But the man Sade would go on a date with also had a criminal record that included operating a vehicle while intoxicated, disorderly conduct, and more.
It was a little disturbing, like a history of violence towards his own family.
And in 2019, he'd also been accused of violence towards a total stranger. According to this police report, Maxwell, seen in this video filmed by a bystander, beat a man who tried to intervene during an argument Maxwell was having with a girlfriend. He was arrested for battery, but pleaded guilty to a lesser charge.
This guy's got a temper, and he doesn't really seem to care who he takes that temper out on.
You're thinking about what could have happened with Sade.
Yes.
But could he be responsible for Sade's disappearance? Detective Donner needed proof.
Just spending the evening with her is not enough.
Right.
With the help of Sade's Life 360 app, Donner knew Sade had driven to Maxwell's house on April 1st.
I wanted to get into his house, and we definitely had enough to do that.
On April 4th, Donner got a search warrant to enter Maxwell's home, and she sent another team to watch him.
So they began to follow him. We prefer to not have the resident in the house. It's just safer.
Within minutes, the team realized Maxwell was heading home, and they had to act fast.
All right, let's take him into custody. The deputy and the detective said that, yeah, they definitely felt him shaking.
Maxwell Anderson later asked for a lawyer and was never interrogated. But when investigators finally entered the house, they were surprised.
There was no big bloody crime scene.
And no sign of a cleanup either.
It was very apparent that the dismemberment didn't happen there.
Investigators did find something of interest.
A lot of knives. A lot of knives. There were, I believe, like 51 found in the kitchen alone.
Anything that could have been used to dismember a body?
I suppose none of those knives were used.
After searching the house, Detective Donner was still missing key elements, like a weapon, crime scene, or even a single piece of direct evidence in Maxwell Anderson's home tying him to Sade's disappearance.
It seemed like every hopeful, lead I got disappointed each time.
Detective Donner started looking into other possible suspects.
While Maxwell Anderson seemed like a really good suspect, I wasn't going to focus on him.
And she even considered the possibility that the remains on the beach belonged to someone else.
What if this isn't her? So I still checked missing databases.
But Sade's loved ones were certain Donner was on the right track. They sent a message covering Maxwell Anderson's yard with balloons and signs, all in Sade's favorite color, pink. Increasing the pressure on the investigation was the shocking discovery of more body parts across the county.
More human remains believed to be those of the young woman.
The remains seemed to be from the same victim. As law enforcement searched for more remains, so did volunteers, including Kiki and Arlinda, family friends of Sade's.
They were already searching. Why even get involved?
I didn't see enough police out here. We came by and the area was empty. But we were like, okay, let's go back and double check and see if we could find anything else.
While searching a wooded area, Kiki found a blanket that belonged to Sade. The next day, Arlinda discovered a human bone next to train tracks. Both were found in areas investigators had already searched.
Could you understand why people might feel a little frustrated when they hear that?
Absolutely.
Detective Donner was also frustrated. That's when this woman, Chloe Wright, stepped forward.
It was like heart-stopping. I mean, it's just like, this can't be real.
Chloe had dated Maxwell for more than a year, and she was stunned to hear her ex-boyfriend was a suspect.
This type of gruesome, graphic murder I just didn't see from him.
Chloe and Maxwell broke up a year earlier. She told us he was never physically abusive, but he could be verbally abusive.
He made comments about like my body weight often, me not being attractive. He wasn't a great boyfriend.
This sounds toxic.
It was very toxic.
Chloe describes Maxwell as a secretive person, but he did share one secret with her investigators were very interested to learn.
I remember it was like winter when he had brought it up, and he was like, if we're still together come spring, I'm gonna take you to this secret beach. And then eventually he took me there.
But Maxwell was so protective of his secret beach that when Chloe drove them there, he would only give her step-by-step directions.
He didn't want me to know the name in case we broke up. He didn't want me bringing other people to his secret spot.
But she remembered where it was.
The police were like, okay, you direct us.
Repeating the directions Maxwell had always given her, Chloe led investigators straight to his secret beach, Warnemont Park.
Just having that proof that he knew about it and was familiar with it to a level that he referred to it as his secret beach, that was pretty big.
What do we think happened here?
This is where he dismembered her.
When you think of that special place, special to him, what comes to mind?
Sade. Yeah. Think about Sade.
On April 12, 2024, Milwaukee County Sheriff Danita Ball made an announcement.
The severed leg has been preliminarily identified as belonging to Ms. Robinson.
That same day, Maxwell Anderson was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and arson. He would plead not guilty to all charges. DNA testing would later confirm the other remains were also Sade. On what should have been Sade's 20th birthday, her family held a memorial for her. It would take a year before they would see the man accused of killing Sade brought to trial. In May 2025, Maxwell Anderson's murder trial began. Detective Donner knew it would be a tough fight with a circumstantial case.
I really wanted that gotcha piece of direct evidence, you know, and it never came.
Use your common sense and search for the truth.
Prosecutor Ian Vance Curzan took the jury through the last minutes of Sade's life.
She was murdered by Maxwell Anderson. Her body was dismembered by Maxwell Anderson in a vicious and gruesome manner. And then Maxwell Anderson attempted to make her disappear from this world.
The prosecutor showed the jury this grainy footage of Anderson's home, captured on his neighbor's security camera. It's hard to see, but investigators say it shows Maxwell and Sade in silhouette arriving at his house and turning on the light of his second-floor living room. Then, through the upstairs window, moving shadows can be seen. Investigators had pored over the footage, hoping to find proof of Anderson murdering Sade.
Do we have any idea what's happening now?
I don't.
But Detective Donner did notice something that happened hours later.
I'm only seeing one person leaving. And I note that that one person that is leaving is the same height as the fence and the gate.
Which is pretty tall.
Is 6 foot.
6 foot.
Investigators suspect Maxwell had already killed Sade by that time.
Max had nothing to do with these crimes.
Maxwell Anderson's defense attorney, Anthony Cotton, told the jury that Anderson, being the last known person with Sade, proved nothing.
We don't dispute any of that timeline, that they went out together and went back to Max's house, but that doesn't mean he killed her.
And he dismissed the footage collected by the prosecution.
All of this video, all the hundreds of hours of video, you can see the car, but you can't ever conclude that he is the one who is driving this vehicle. It's a pure speculation.
Cotton highlighted what he called the serious holes in the state's case, mainly the lack of motive and the unknown cause of death.
There is absolutely no reason for Max to commit a crime like this. Why would he ever do something like that?
Cotton pointed out that authorities can't even say how Sade died because some of her remains have not been recovered. CBS 58 reporter Adam Reif says the defense's case seemed to be effective with courtroom watchers.
There was talk as this trial wore on that not all the evidence is there. If it was Maxwell Anderson, how did he do it, and where is that murder weapon?
But what would the jury think?
Did any of you think, oh, this is a slam dunk?
We spoke to 4 of the jurors, Becca, Marilyn, Nikki, and Mel, who says she was unimpressed with the footage of Sade's car that the prosecution presented.
I was like, where the hell is this going? Why are they showing us this? Who's driving? We don't know. Like, there's no definitive proof.
But there was one video that did make an impression. This footage of a man leaving the scene of Sade's burning vehicle. You can hear a bystander calling out. Marilyn, the jury forewoman, says the footage reminded her of the mystery person on the beach.
You know, that is the same silhouette that we saw walking the streets of Milwaukee.
The man then gets on a city bus, and you can see his face crystal clear. It was Maxwell Anderson.
What does he have with him?
He has that large backpack still.
The backpack, pants, and shoes Anderson is wearing on the bus were never recovered. His gray jacket was eventually found in his neighbor's garbage can. When the jacket was tested, it had Sade's DNA inside the hood and on the zipper pull.
Now, could it be maybe explained away? Sure. I mean, she did go to his house.
Why would you throw it in a trash can 2 houses away from your home?
Exactly.
State calls Chloe Wright.
Chloe Wright, who chose to testify off camera, spoke about her ex-boyfriend and his secret beach.
He looked at her like, I'm gonna kill you right now. Don't you say a word.
You all noticed that.
She played a very
vital role, I think, in...
But jurors would soon learn about a safe found in Sade's apartment. Inside, marijuana and what appeared to be methamphetamine pills. Although the pills were never sent to the state crime lab for conclusive testing, the defense seemed to suggest more should have been done to see if Sade's murder was really connected to those drugs.
I felt that it was irrelevant to the case because there was never, ever any evidence that pointed to her as being a substance abuser.
They're just trying to distract us.
So it never crossed your mind once that maybe this was a drug deal gone wrong or...
Never.
No.
Never.
Investigators had tested Sade's remains.
Did they find any drugs in her system?
No. Caffeine was the only thing found.
Jurors say it was actually one of the last pieces of evidence that they saw that made the biggest impact. Photos found on Maxwell Anderson's phone that he had taken and deleted. The photos are of Sade at his home.
She is face down. Her arm is over her face. You see the hand of a white male grasping what would be her right breast.
Do you believe Sade was deceased or alive in those pictures? Do you know?
I do not know. My assumption is that she was deceased.
To see the way he treated her like an object, it was really disturbing.
I mean, I personally felt like I had lived the last few hours of Sade's life with her, and you were walking kind of her footsteps throughout the night, and to see her end up like that was disgusting, humiliating, just horrible.
We went all back into the jury room, and there was a lot of quiet, a lot of hugs, and just everybody was just kind of sick.
That did it. That did it.
The state has no more witnesses. The state rests.
Okay.
And then Maxwell Anderson's defense rested without calling a single witness.
Is it still your decision not to testify?
That is my decision.
The jurors headed to deliberate, but they didn't deliberate for long. After breaking for the night, the jury had a verdict in less than an hour.
We want to come in here and we want to make a statement with how fast we make this decision.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Maxwell Anderson, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, guilty of mutilating a corpse, guilty of arson of property other than a building,
Guilty of Sade Robinson's murder.
as to count 4.
But 2 months later, Maxwell Anderson decided to tell his story.
Mr. Anderson, what would you like to say?
Look at the birthday girl hooking on her birthday. Look at her. Come on, Sade. Go ahead, baby girl.
This is the most heinous crime this court will see. It doesn't get more serious than this.
Sade Robinson's family was determined to see that Maxwell Anderson would never be free again. They spoke directly to the judge at his sentencing. 17-year-old Adriana.
When Maxwell Anderson murdered my sister, he redefined my definition of misfortune. He made it to where I cannot meet any person without the fear that they're gonna harm or kill me. Because all my sister did was meet someone, and as a result, he ended her life. He tried to erase her existence and her value. Now I no longer have the opportunity to try and give her everything she gave me.
Sade's father, Carlos Robinson, told the court what justice would be for him.
To lose your child in this manner is unthinkable. What he has done is inconceivable. He deserves the punishment that he gave to my daughter. Everything that he did should be done to him. To me, that's justice.
Sheena, wearing Sade's favorite color, pink, on her eyelids, wanted answers from her daughter's killer.
You disrespectfully spread my daughter across Milwaukee like a piece of trash. How dare you?
And she made a heartbreaking plea.
I'm going to respectfully request that you confess where my daughter's crown is.
Sade's crown, her head, which has still never been found.
You've already done the worst. You can at least give us that much.
But if Sade's family was hoping for answers, they were disappointed.
Mr. Anderson, what would you like to say?
Maxwell Anderson finally chose to speak.
I would like to start by saying that from the bottom of my heart, my deepest and most sincere condolences go out to Sade's family, as well as everyone else affected by this tragedy. That being said, Your Honor, I did not commit these crimes. I hope and pray that further investigations not only prove my innocence, but find and deliver true justice.
So you would think that he would tell us the things we wanted to know and finally feel some remorse after sitting in jail for these months? And then he didn't.
Anything else you wish to say?
No, ma'am.
Judge Laura Crivello read a statement Anderson made to an investigator after his conviction.
He regretted he did not walk Miss Robinson to her vehicle when she left his apartment, and he believed it was at that point she was abducted by an unknown assailant, quote, either from the alley or from my backyard, unquote. When asked how he accounted for his presence in the area where Miss Robinson's vehicle was set on fire, Mr. Anderson said that he was set up.
You're hearing this stuff and you're like,
no. Nope.
What do you think happened that night?
I believe that they went back to his house. I think he may have wanted to take things further than she was comfortable with, and that maybe she rejected him. And his rather well-documented temper came out.
And Donner suspects Anderson would have killed again.
I think this was his first time killing. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. I do firmly believe, though, that it probably wouldn't be his last if he hadn't been caught, given what he did to her body.
Chloe wonders if she could have been one of his targets. A year after they broke up, she says, Maxwell sent her a message on Instagram.
And it was, ignore time is over.
5 hours later, Maxwell Anderson met Sade Robinson when she applied for that job.
That's got to give you the chills.
It's eerie.
Before sentencing Anderson, Judge Crivello took a moment to share her own thoughts about the loss of Sade Robinson.
She was a girl that I would hope all young ladies strive to be.
Hey, guys.
She was loved in the community by almost everyone that touched her. You stole a truly shining light, is what it sounds like.
And then she gave the man who stole that light the maximum.
You shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life. I am ordering that you will not be eligible for extended supervision.
Life without the possibility of parole.
Thank you guys for supporting us.
Outside the courthouse, Sade's loved ones thanked the city of Milwaukee for keeping her memory alive.
I do appreciate the city of Milwaukee because they have shown my daughter a lot of love.
A mural of Sade sits beneath her beloved pizza shuttle. Sheena has launched a program in Sade's honor to help crime victims, and she has partnered with a Wisconsin state representative to create a task force to examine and prevent the disproportionately high levels of violence against Black women and girls. In May of 2024, Adriana, dressed in a pink cap and gown, accepted Sade's degree at what should have been her big sister's graduation.
Seeing her live her life as such a hard worker who never let anything stop her, I knew that she would want me to do that after I lost her, that she would want me to keep living. And so I'm gonna remember her by following in her footsteps and fill the hole that she left, although I know I can never live up to anywhere near her shoes.
I don't know about that.
I do.
In Warnemont Park, the site where this tragic investigation began, Sade's family and friends unveiled a memorial bench. It's in the area Detective Donner has searched dozens of times in the hopes of fulfilling Sade's loved one's deepest wish of laying all of Sade to rest.
Do you think we'll ever find Sade's crown?
I think so, when the lake is ready to give her back.
Welcome to Post Mortem. I'm 48 Hours correspondent Natalie Morales, filling in for Anne-Marie Green, who is on the other side of the mic to talk about her latest report on the murder of 19-year-old Sade Robinson. Thanks for joining me, Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Natalie. I'm looking forward to talking about this.
Now, this all started when the Milwaukee Fire Department responded to a vehicle that was set on fire in April of 2024. Turns out that car belonged to Sade, but nobody could get a hold of her. Well, that same day, a body part from an unidentified female washed up on a remote beach on the Wisconsin shoreline of Lake Michigan. And Anne-Marie, Sade's friends also hadn't heard from her since she went on a date the night before, right?
Yeah, and in fact, it was one of her coworkers at Pizza Shuttle that really raised the alarm. She was concerned that Sade hadn't showed up for work. She's such a good employee. She would never just not show up. She just couldn't let it go, and she was the one who contacted police.
Well, good for her for following through with that. And you also talk about in this hour, as we see how much security footage played a part in helping, police put the pieces of this puzzle together.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we all know that there's a lot of, surveillance cameras around, security cameras, ring cameras. We know that we're on camera a lot. But in this case, it wasn't just sort of the places that you would expect, like the lobby of her apartment building, but that remote area of the park, Warnemont Park, was just, it was remarkable that they even had video from there. And Sade in particular left kind of digital breadcrumbs pretty much everywhere. And that is part of what led to police honing in on Maxwell Anderson so quickly.
There are eyes in the sky everywhere, as we can see throughout this hour. We're going to talk about it all. But first, I want to remind our listeners and our viewers, if you haven't listened or watched this episode yet, please go ahead and do that right now. Go check it out and come on back and join our conversation. So, Anne-Marie, at first, while watching the episode, I thought that this was going to be one of those dating app horror stories. Turns out, though, that Sade actually met Maxwell Anderson in person before their date.
Right. I mean, this is the old-fashioned way, right? She was looking for yet another job. She already had 2 jobs, and she was looking for a third one at the bar. She meets him there. He's working there. And so, yeah, why not think it's okay to go out on a date? This is a young woman who has everything going for her. She's unbelievably driven. She wants to enter the Air Force. She's finishing up her education. She's going places. And this one person, ruined everything.
Such a tragic turn. She had everything and seemed to be doing everything right. The first person we meet in this episode, she's so fascinating, is the detective, Joe Donner. And, I wasn't quite sure what to make of her fashion sense. I mean, she's incredible. She's like something out of another era almost.
And that is deliberate. That is by design. She is just one of those people that's really into 1940s and 1950s fashion and the aesthetic of the time. She actually owns a vintage clothing store, and she does these like online social media sales where she'll show like the latest haul that she's gotten, and people all over the world tune in to buy stuff from her. She does these, I guess, pinup contests. We're not talking burlesque stuff, right? We're talking about people who dress like in the era. Her pinup name is Misdemeanor. How appropriate is that, Natalie?
I love it.
So, yeah, she's got this whole fascinating other side to her. But boy, is she a damn good investigator.
She sure is. And when she gets down to business, she really gets down to business, as we see. Now, it was Detective Donner who took you to that remote beach, showed you around. What was it like?
The beach is an interesting spot. It's quite desolate. Though there's a road leading down there, there's a big fence. You can't drive down there. You have to know the pathway to take to get down there. And certainly people come down there to walk their dogs or maybe just to get away. But you would have to really know that that spot is there to venture down there. I wouldn't go down there, and I wouldn't go down there alone.
She also took you to the place where they have Sade's burned vehicle.
Yeah. So seeing the car, I mean, it was almost a little emotional because it is absolutely charred. But even though Maxwell Anderson tried to get rid of every stitch of evidence, he fails to get rid of some really crucial evidence, three pieces of crucial evidence. Where the driver's seat is situated, that doesn't change. So they know that, Sade probably wasn't driving that car. But then her purse is found basically intact. I mean, it's singed, but it's found underneath the car seat, and the clothes she was wearing that night, those are in the trunk of the car. And finding that car really helped to speed up this investigation as well.
Yeah, that was what was so fascinating. I never thought about that clue of measuring the seat distance and that being a big clue into the height of the individual who last drove the car, which would turn out to be really important in helping solve this case.
And I should say that the other officer, right, Donegan, who was the one who was called to do a check on her apartment, she was crucial. She said to us that day she was getting ready for work, and like the news was on in the background, and she kind of heard about a body part being found, and then she gets this call to go to the apartment, and like immediately she has this gut reaction. She went on a date. She's not here now. I heard about this news report about a body part. And she was also really significant in speeding up the investigation, because if it had not moved forward as quickly as it did, Donner really feels like there's a good possibility that a lot of that really crucial video would have been lost.
Let's also talk, though, about Sade's younger sister, Adriana. I mean, her ability to offer up data on Sade via Life 360, the app, I mean, it proved to be invaluable, right?
Yeah, exactly. Detective Donner calls Adriana the quiet backbone of the family. And I don't know how Adriana was able to keep a level head in the middle of all of this chaos. I've never, ever, ever met an adult, much less a teenager, with the type of presence that this young girl has. I'm glad it came through in the hour. She's remarkable. And she was able to provide the information about the Life 360 app. She could show them where Sade had gone. She could show them that she had been at Maxwell Anderson's house at around 9:30. She could show, according to the Life 360 app, that at 2:53, the phone arrived at Warnemont Park. All of these things were crucial.
That Life 360 app, that was something, the minute my kids got their driver's license, I put it on their phones, because it goes beyond the Find My feature. You can actually track if they're going and driving above the speed limit. It gives you an alert. So it's an incredible tool.
Yeah, I had never heard of the app before. I have since put it on my phone. Because it really is remarkable, the amount of detail. It helped investigators literally kind of like walk the path that Sade did. to figure this whole thing out.
Well, this brings us to the man who was then charged with Sade Robinson's murder, Maxwell Anderson. Tell us about him.
So this guy's, as you can imagine, an interesting character. He's 33 years old. Sade was a teenager. She's 19. We spoke to his ex-girlfriend, Chloe, and Chloe also was very young when they started dating.
Perhaps preying on their vulnerability.
Exactly. Even before he met Sade, he had a criminal record, operating a vehicle while intoxicated, disorderly conduct. And you saw in the hour that he was arrested for battery against a bystander who tried to intervene. He was apparently having an argument with one of his girlfriends, and he ended up pleading guilty to a lesser charge for that.
What was really fascinating and kind of alarming, in my opinion, was when detectives did search his apartment, they found he had a large collection of knives in his apartment, which, that really raised my eyebrow.
Yeah, 51 knives in the kitchen alone.
I like to cook. I have a lot of knives, but I certainly don't have a collection like that.
No, I know. And I'm pretty sure investigators were hopeful that amongst those knives, they would find something that maybe played a role in this case. And that simply wasn't the case. Chloe says that he sort of fancied himself a handyman, but he was always starting projects that he would never finish. But there were 2 projects, she said, that he did finish in the time that she knew him. And they were both secret compartments. And she sort of described how you would touch something and then a compartment would pop out. We didn't know what he was hiding in those compartments. The other curious tidbit, investigators found tons of women's clothing in his house. Random items, shirts, pants, not necessarily all intimate items. Chloe wonders if some of the clothes might be hers. They also found the ID of a woman. They did track the woman down. She's alive and well. A couple of other interesting things about that house. The house is actually sort of split. He owns the house, but he lived on the 2nd floor, and then there was a tenant on the 1st floor. Apparently, the tenant complained a lot about the noise. Maxwell Anderson had dogs. He would complain about the dogs making too much noise upstairs. The tenant was home the night Sade went over there and never heard a thing.
Did investigators have a theory as to how Sade Robinson could have been killed without making any sort of noise? Strangulation, perhaps? It's a silent death?
Yeah, I was going to say that could have been, a way someone could have been killed without making a lot of noise and certainly without a lot of blood, which is also something else that they didn't find. He goes on the date with her April 1st. He's arrested by April 4th.
On April 12th, 2024, the sheriff's office announced that the remains found on that remote beach were identified as belonging to Sade Robinson. And on that same day, Maxwell Anderson was formally charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and arson. He would plead not guilty to all the charges. Now, one of the worries for Detective Joe Donner was that there wasn't any direct evidence linking Maxwell Anderson to the case, but it didn't seem, Anne-Marie, that the jury really needed that so much, right?
No, it was really the last piece of evidence that sealed his fate. We spoke to a number of jurors, but one juror, Becca, talked about seeing those photos that Maxwell Anderson had taken on his phone and then deleted. They are photos of Sade. You can see his hand on her. He's touching, intimate areas of her body. And that basically did it for these jurors. I want to read a little bit of what Becca had to say about this. She said, I personally felt like I had lived the last few hours of Sade's life with her. And to see her end up like that was disgusting, humiliating, just horrible.
Yeah, and to think that to not know if she was dead or alive when those photos were taken, they seem staged, almost like a trophy, but then he deletes them. That tells you a lot if you're a juror, right?
It was perhaps the most powerful piece of evidence that the jurors saw.
Right. That along with, we did see the footage of the man on the beach with the backpack.
Yeah.
Also, then you saw the surveillance footage of the man leaving the burnt car, and then you see clearly Maxwell Anderson's face when he hops onto a city bus. I mean, thank goodness that security footage was very crisp and clear. You could clearly see his face.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and then it turns out the defense didn't call any witnesses. So the jury didn't take very long to deliberate. Anderson was found guilty of intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and arson. Although he continues to maintain his innocence at his sentencing, Sade's mother, father, and sister, they weren't having any of that.
No, they were very outspoken. Sade's mother is, really, she's been dealing with a lot of stuff even before the disappearance and the murder of her daughter. She's been dealing with sort of health stuff. And so it really took a lot out of her. And she has kept the fight going. But it wasn't just the family members that spoke. Maxwell Anderson's father also spoke. He was crying. He said Sade's family, he thought about them every single day. He said that he loved his son and that he hoped for a path for his son that would allow his son to become a positive influence in some way. There was also members of the community that sent in letters because the whole city was moved by this murder. And there was one particular letter from an anonymous person that even the jurors said had a significant impact on them. And I'm going to read some portions of this because I think it really captures the way the entire city of Milwaukee felt about Sade. Sade Robinson was not a torso. She was not evidence. She was a full, living, radiant human being. She had dreams, plans, and a future she was building with pride. She had people who loved her and that still love her more than words can hold. And she had a right to live, to breathe, to laugh, to grow old. That right was stolen, and it continues. But here's what you couldn't take. You could not mutilate her soul. You could not silence the scream of justice. You could not prevent an entire community from rising up in Sade's name.
So beautiful and so moving. I love that the judge read that letter.
It's not surprising because I really felt like she became the daughter of the entire city. People either saw something in her that they felt was also in them or in a young woman that they know, whether it's a daughter or a friend. And they really rallied around this family, which I thought was significant, Natalie, because the reality of it is that there often are times when young Black women are victims of crime and they don't get the same level of attention, right? And I just want to read a statistic out. This is Columbia University's study. In Wisconsin, Black women are 20 times more likely to be murdered than white women. It's the worst statistic in the country. The other thing is that Milwaukee is home to Jeffrey Dahmer. And when you think of Dahmer's crimes, there's a sickening feeling that comes with it. And this reminded Milwaukee of that sickening feeling. And just as a kind of a side note, when we traveled there to do some of our interviews, we stayed in this really nice old hotel. It was built sort of I think it's in 1920s, 1930s. But I kind of cracked a little joke with the guy at the front desk and asked him if there were any ghosts. And then I struck up a conversation with someone in the elevator and I mentioned that I was inquiring about ghosts. And he said, well, you know what happened on the 5th floor. And it turns out the hotel we stayed in was a hotel that Jeffrey Dahmer killed one of his victims in. But I gotta tell you, I slept with the lights on.
I would have too.
Yeah, I'm that person.
Oh my gosh. I'm surprised you slept at all.
Yeah, I know.
Back to Sade, as we know, her remains, they were spread all over the county. We learned from some friends that they even found a blanket that had belonged to Sade, as well as they found what they believed was a human bone in an area that investigators had already searched. You talked to Sade's sister, Adriana, as well about the ongoing search for Sade's remains. I wanted to play a little piece of that.
Does it bother you that, parts of your sister are still missing?
Yeah, it definitely does. I have this necklace and another one, which is a star that I wear every day that has some of her ashes in it. So it's like
a part of her is with me, but knowing that a part of her isn't with anyone, that it's floating around somewhere decomposed, it's like she hasn't been allowed to stop fighting. Like, her battle's not over. Like, she's never gonna be able to rest in some sense.
Heartbreakingly, you know, as we saw in the sentencing, Sade's mother asked Maxwell Anderson to confess where her daughter's crown was. And we're talking about her head, of course. He, though, maintained his innocence. But we do hope that Sade's family will get an answer someday. And I know that search is ongoing.
Yeah, this is the kind of continued heartbreak for everyone who cares about Sade, that all of her has not been found.
Before we go, though, let's end on something that is so hopeful and positive and uplifting, I think, and that is that Sade's legacy is her younger sister, Adriana. Adriana, as we mentioned, such a bright light in this world. Well, she accepted Sade's graduation diploma for her associate's degree, but she also has some big news, right?
Yeah, so Adriana is in the top 5% of high school kids in Wisconsin. She's been accepted to Harvard. She has a 99% scholarship. She doesn't know what she's going to do, where she's going to go. But when I say I've never met anyone like this, I wish her all the luck in the world. I don't think she needs it. I expect great things from Adriana, and I cannot wait to watch her continue to strive and rise and accomplish and be all the things that we all know she can be, but also that her sister knew she could be.
Well, that is a hopeful way to end this. And thank you again for your incredible reporting, Anne-Marie, on this one. Appreciate it.
Always great talking to you, Natalie.
And if you liked this episode, please rate or review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify.